With that, thank you, Lehman.
All right, thank you, Chairman. I'm just going to go over some of the highlights of the proposed FY19 general fund budget. We have projected revenues of $50,263,500. This is an increase of $981,800 over the FY18 budget, which is about a 2% increase. Of this amount, property taxes provide 49% of the revenue. Other taxes provide 32% of the revenue, and this includes our local option sales tax and the insurance premium tax. Charge for services provide 12% of the revenue, and most of this comes from collection commissions and prisoner housing fees that we receive from the state. And fines and fees provide about 4% of the revenue. We have a balanced budget, so our total expenditures total $50,263,500. These, if you break them down by the functions of government, the public safety is the largest portion of the budget. We spend about 55% of the general fund budget on public safety. The general government function spends 12%, and the judicial also spends 12% of the budget. Public Works is at 11%, and the Parks and Recreation is about 6% of the budget. Housing and Development, 3%. If you look at the expenditures by category, our personnel service and employee benefits equal 68%. So out of our total budget, $34,133,000 goes for personal services and employee benefits, which leaves $16,129,000 for other purchased services and contracted services. This year, I want to go over a few of the things that we were able to fund with the additional $981,000. In January, the budget provides for hiring an assistant chief tax appraiser, and in January, also 2 additional inside correctional officers for the prison. We reached an agreement with the sheriff's office for them to use money from vacant positions to address the funding of deputies' pay, with the understanding that if he is able to fund vacant positions, that we will make a budget amendment even if we have to take money out of fund balance. The budget also provides an additional $300,000 in funding for the county ambulance contract to add an additional ambulance to serve the county. And we have this year a full year of funding for the transit vans, which is fixing to start. And we have some additional funding for the rec department, but this will be covered by an increase in user fees from participants. Unfortunately, the revenue, without looking at a tax increase, either property or maybe the T-SPLOS that could direct money from the general fund to other areas from the road department or public works, we were not able to provide an across-the-board increase for employee raises this year. There's no increase in the number of firemen, which has been requested for several years, and there is no increase in funding for the public defender that has been made. And a few years ago, we actually decreased funding for the health department, and we have not been able to reinstate that funding, and we were not able to fund the request from the library. That's it. That's the highlights.
All right. Lehman, thank you very much. This time we'll open the floor for public comments. There was a sign-in sheet, and obviously if we missed anybody, we'll be glad to open the floor to you as well. First off, we'll call on Darrell Hessel.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Darrell Hessel, live at 156 Long Island Drive in Whitesburg. My wife and I are both retired pastors and have been there for about 10 years. I wrote a letter and sent it to all of the commissioners by email. Don't know if everybody read it, but with your permission, I would like to read it to put it in the record so that all of us can think about this. We came to Whitesburg area not because of the city, but to build a house in Stillwater's plantation just north of Whitesburg. Whitesburg City was merely a very poor-looking, small community nearby. We have come to love it and are now very active in its life. Both of us are involved with the Whitesburg Public Library and Friends of the Whitesburg Public Library. As you're aware, our library is facing a funding crisis. Its continued service appears dependent upon an increase of $50,000 in the library system budget. That the well-being of the city of Whitesburg itself is really at stake. From others, you will hear the story about the library in Whitesburg. Suffice it for purposes of this letter to note that it was built through contributions of Carroll County citizens and organizations, not by county money. It was opened in 2008 with great celebration. A Friends of the Library organization was formed through which more than $60,000 have been contributed in support of the library and its programs in these past 10 years. The Friends continue their active support. You see many of them sitting here before you. A very significant part of the population of Whitesburg has lived in generational poverty. People in such circumstances struggle with poor health, very limited education, and few employment opportunities. They have survived in large part through public assistance and charitable organizations. Services of the Whitesburg Public Library are enabling these residents to take steps to emerge from poverty. The library provides access to literature of many types, newspapers, free computer and internet access, a wide variety of children's programs and activities, tutoring, meeting space, tax preparation and assistance. It has worked very closely with Whitesburg Elementary School. This spirit of cooperation is spreading through the community. In recent years, the school has been recognized with many awards, including being the only elementary school in the nation to get national level recognition for its science and technology education. Who would believe that in that little town of Whitesburg? This is a huge progress with promise for future Whitesburg and Carroll County. Students now graduating to middle schools from Whitesburg are very well prepared to succeed in education through high school and beyond. This progress would not have come without the partnership between the library and the school. Much of the progress in Whitesburg over the years has come through efforts and resources of residents outside of the Whitesburg city limits who have given their money, their time, their personal abilities. They are due great thanks. Their support will surely continue. But a new nonprofit organization, Whitesburg Area Christian Ministries, or WACM, is bringing together 8 congregations of various sizes, denominations, operating a food pantry begun 8 years ago in Whitesburg, in the Whitesburg Methodist Church. That food pantry will soon be operated in the renovated Old City Hall building in Whitesburg, which has been leased to us by the city. Other ministries will be added as needs are recognized. Significantly, through WACM, Whitesburg residents will have opportunity together to care for and improve their own community. All of this foundation of cooperation fostered by the library, the entire city is moving forward. In light of all of the above, my wife Linda and I implore you, please provide the necessary county financial support to keep the Whitesburg Public Library serving this forward-moving community. Respectfully submitted, Darrell Hessel. Do I need to leave this with someone? Okay.
Thank you. Bill, is it Rowell? I see that now. Thank you.
My name is Bill Burris. I live at 450 Black Dirt Road in Whitesburg. Oh, forgive me. Good morning. It's been a long time since I've had to get up and be civil at this hour in the morning. Reverend Hessel, with remarks he just made, has stolen my fire, so I'll be brief. I want to add some perspective to the case he has made, the way in which the library has drawn the community together, the extraordinary cooperation between the Whitesburg Public Library and Whitesburg Elementary School, and broader effects. But the overall point I want to make is that in a community, you can't solve a problem by just throwing money at it. On the other hand, it makes no sense to be penny wise and pound foolish by ignoring a wise investment. When the library first opened, it was visited by some members of the Roy Richards family. Now, their family foundation has helped us in many ways, but they came on a personal mission, and they were so impressed that they personally donated a piece of art, which still hangs there in Whitesburg. It was also remarked that this community effort should be brought to national attention, like on 60 Minutes. And though none of us were ready for primetime television, recognition of our library on an international level has been made in several visits by librarian organizations from the nations of Belarus and the Georgian Republic. These visits were arranged by the U.S. State Department, and as a result, the Georgia Visitors Bureau knows about the little library in Carroll County. It should be mentioned that the county helped our project in special ways. Individuals from the Carroll County government have volunteered time and labor, and that includes members of the commission as well, and some guests of the county prison system. Today, the library, through its friends and volunteers, who, by the way, not only come from throughout Carroll County, but from neighboring counties and Alabama, that gives and delivers books and magazines to several county organizations. These include Tanner Hospital, the county's prison, Master Gardeners, the Women's Shelter, and various nursing homes. So you can see that through the strong community aspect of a library's existence in one town, there are broad and very positive effects to the other towns of our county. During the time of recovery from Katrina, the library and its friends sent a van full of books to New Orleans, driven there by a teacher friend of our organization who once lived in Carroll County. All this, so much more, including the benefits that Reverend Hessel has pointed out. Can you buy all that for $50,000? The Whitesburg Public Library has been identified as a possible closing because of a $50,000 shortfall in the library budget. This possibly may be a result of some fine-tuning budgetary formula, which sort of is a per capita calculation versus the population. So consider this. The overwhelming majority of the students at Whitesburg Elementary School live outside the city's limits. That means all those families who are not Whitesburg residents benefit from and use the library, but they may be ignored in the allocation for the library funding. And we know that by our surveys, these citizens would not and they could not travel to Carrollton for such a purpose. Lastly, and as I'm wrapping it up, consider Upson County. There, the city of Yatesville houses the precursor of the Whitesburg Library. They're virtually identical, and their features include low utility bills because of passive solar design, possibly the only such public buildings in Georgia. And Carroll County prisoners installed the ductwork for that. Upson County is much more rural than Carroll County and nowhere near as prosperous or fortunate. Yet, their library budget is at least twice the per capita amount as that of Carroll County's. So in conclusion, I believe that what we're talking about and asking for today is that the library budget have an increase of 40 cents per capita. Thank you.
Bill, thank you. Ms. Jackie Pate.
Hello, I'm Jackie Pate. I live at 3094 East Highway 5 in Whitesburg, out in the county. I wanted to share with you how Whitesburg Public Library came to be. The Whitesburg Public Library was built by our community because we wanted and needed a library. The city of Whitesburg committed $100,000 from SPLOST. The Carroll County Board of Education donated land next door to the school. And then the Rural Library Project and the Friends of the Library worked 6 years to raise $150,000 to supplement the SPLOST. The library opened March 31st, 2008. And since it opened, it has enriched and improved the lives of so many people in our community. Before the library opened, many people didn't have access to all the services that a library offers, like the computers that are there, and books, and many programs for children and adults. In fact, since the library opened, more than 1,200 new library cards have been issued, and about 2/3 of those were to children who obviously had not been visiting the library. I think you know that many people in our area do not have access to high-speed internet, including Mr. Powers, I believe. So the public computers are in constant use there. And also people use our Wi-Fi service with their own devices. We often see people sitting outside the library in their cars, even when we're not open, using the Wi-Fi. It's simply unthinkable to imagine our community without the Whitesburg Public Library. But without additional funding from the county, it's our understanding that West Georgia Regional Library will close our library. Please don't let this happen. So many people have dedicated so many hours to raising the money to build the library, to continue to fund many programs at the library, to volunteer there, and to work at the Friends bookstore. We have 30 people who work there every week. So many people depend on the services it offers. What a tragedy to see the library close and that building sit there empty next to the school instead of serving as the heart of the community that it has become. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Angela Franklin.
Good morning, y'all. I received my first library card 67 years ago, and I've had one ever since. I am the volunteer reading tutor at the Whitesburg Library, and I'm going to tell you that reading is necessary. I had one child tell me, if you can't read, you can't be a garbage man, because how are you going to know which street to go down? So they know it's important, but they struggle with it. And our library in Whitesburg provides a roof over my head and a corner to teach those children to read. We need a little help, and I'll gladly stand on the corner with my bucket if I need to. But those children, if they can't read by 3rd grade, we're dooming them. We're dooming them. We build jails according to who can and can't read in third grade. We doom them to not graduating high school if they can't read by third grade. And we doom Carroll County to not have the workers we need to grow with industries if they can't read and they can't graduate high school. I'm asking you to consider, not just for Whitesburg, but for all libraries, that reading is a necessary part of life, much like air. Without it, things die. Thank you for your opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Barry Shoemake.
I'm the pastor of the Whitesburg Christian Church, and as Darrell said, I can't really add anything to what's already been said, except for that there is a community spirit that's growing in Whitesburg right now, between churches and other organizations, and the library is in the midst of all that, and very important for the community. And I can tell you that I am personally aware of people who, for whom the library is their only access to a computer and their only access to the internet. So it's an important asset for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Shirley Robinson.
Good morning. I'm Shirley Robinson. I'm at 161 Lambert Road, Whitesburg, Georgia. I live out of the city limits, but Whitesburg Public Library is very dear to me. As you have listened to all these people get up here and talk about how valuable it is, I want you to understand that this is not just a brick building that houses books. If you listen to Angela, she houses the ability to tutor our students from Whitesburg or the community at free of charge. Ruth Fuller is there to welcome all the children who cannot get transportation to Carrollton, but can ride their bikes to our library. This library houses a community, not just books, but a community, a building where our senior citizens can come and learn about computers from Ruth. It houses a safe place for our children. So please take in consideration the funds we need to keep going. If it's for our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Jane Davis.
Good morning. I'm Mary Jane Davis. I'm at 119 Brandywine Trail in Carrollton. I'm here representing the Carrollton Friends of the Library. I'm president of that organization. I would just like to say thank you for all the support that you have given us as a regional library system for all these years. And I would like to quote the regional library director, Jessica, who said to me, "We need an additional $50,000 in the library system to survive and thrive." And that's what I'm here to ask you to consider. I know Michelle is a great patron of the library, and I know Marty's married to a media specialist, and you know how important it all is. So, yes, we thank you very much for your support and hope you'll consider it. Thanks.
Thank you. Claire Baker.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing this opportunity. My name is Claire Baker, and I want to speak to you as an outsider from Whitesburg on the Whitesburg funding. I've known a lot of students over the years. I used to teach at Central High School, And then I worked in the system-wide area in Carroll County Schools, and I got out to the schools quite frequently, and I got to know the teachers and the communities, and I can tell you that this Whitesburg Library has made the most difference in that community than you can imagine. And even though I'm not going to directly benefit from it, I know that we all benefit from the education of students and from supporting communities whose heart is in a certain place, and that's what this building represents for this community. We know there's no good substitute for local, easy access. I think that's really the issue here. It would be nice if everybody could just plop down at Neeble-Omason whenever they thought about it, and which I do, and I still use it constantly. So I just feel really strongly that this is extremely important. I know $50,000 is $50,000, but when you look at the whole budget, you know, it's not that much, and it will have a huge impact on the community. So I ask you to help make this legacy for yourselves. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That is actually the last person I was going to open. We're going to open the floor now in case anybody did not sign up. Robin, anybody else?
Good morning. Good morning. Hi, I'm Robin Collins, 201 Griffin Drive, Carrollton, Georgia, 30117. And I am on the library board for the county of Carroll. And every few weeks, all of the librarians or their representatives come in and tell what all they've been doing for the last 6 weeks or so. And I have to tell you, but don't tell anybody else. When I look at what these libraries have done, I just remarked at the last board that Whitesburg is the best library of all. They do more with less staff than any other library. But don't tell anybody that I'm playing favorites, okay? So it would really be a shame if you closed Whitesburg Library. Thanks.
Robin, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Linda Hessel, Daryl's wife, and I live at 156 Long Island Drive in Whitesburg. If you noticed in the paper this morning, they had a list of all the places in the county that were going to give school lunches and sometimes school suppers. This year, for the first year, Whitesburg Library is not on that list because they couldn't be sure they could pull it off. Please let them feed those children. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes.
I'm sorry I was late. I'm Linda Carnes, 1195 Black Dirt Road, Whitesburg, Georgia. And I think you all have heard everything that needs to be said. I think you know what we need in Whitesburg. And I just wanted to come up and give my support. And I have a grandchild with me, and he has benefited from the library in Whitesburg. I have 3 grandchildren, not to mention all of the other children. But I just wanted to say that all 3 of my grandchildren have participated in the summer reading programs. They have benefited from the in-house field trips that the library pays for there at Whitesburg School. And just wanted to stand and say that I'm here to support Whitesburg in any way possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. The floor is still open. Anyone else? If not, I think Commissioner Morgan had a question.
I do. I have a few questions. I've always been told that the libraries belong to the cities. So, Stacy, is there a way, and I'm sure I don't expect you to do it by Tuesday, but you and I had this conversation over the weekend, so we don't find ourselves in this situation a year from now or in the next year where another library in our community So two questions. One, what exactly is our role? What is our financial obligation? I think we need to define that going forward. If we don't have an answer, we need to define it going forward so that we don't find ourselves with a money surprise, any of us. And that leads to my second question is, I know with some of the other organizations that we make donations to. So that's where I guess I want to make sure, is this a donation like Communities in School, CASA, or is this an obligation that we are required to fund? So that's some questions, so I think at least for clarity going forward. And then also, if we are funding this, I would like to have some updates, and there again, somewhere we put it in writing or we have a verbal commitment that is recorded so that we know how the funds are being spent, so that we don't find ourselves in this situation again, that all of a sudden next year someone says, well, we all know health insurance is going up, we all know electric bills are going up. And what is our role so we can plan better as commissioners or the ones that will be sitting in this seat 10 years from now? So can I put that on you, or should I put that on Lehman? Or I don't know. I just want to make sure we have a defined role, because I think each county has different verbals. Because I was making notes here, and I said, okay, so I know from SPLOS funds we have funded Temple while I've sat in this seat. I know we funded Villarica, I believe that was right before me, but I knew from the newspaper. I know from sitting in this seat we're funding Carrollton. I don't know if we ever funded the Bowden Library, we've ever funded the Whitesburg or funded Mount Zion in SPLOST. So I want to kind of keep things somewhat equal, because I was listening to, let's see, I'm sorry, get my notes again. Oh, Jackie, when you mentioned that the money from Whitesburg, a rural initiative, and the Friends, there was no mention of Carroll County having donated, and I don't know why. Were they not asked? Who was the commissioner sitting in this seat? I'd like a little more history if anyone has it.
I'll let Bill and Marjorie answer that.
And I guess that pertained to the 165 that was raised. How was that done originally, I guess?
Yes, that was.
The city committed $100,000 for SPLOST.
Right.
They had access to. And then the Rural Library Project and the Friends raised the additional $150,000 from foundations and individual or company donations, and we did many fundraisers. We began operating a bookstore while we were raising money to build a library. We continue to operate the bookstore.
I guess because Susan.
There's really a lot, and then also there was a lot of volunteer labor in building the library once it was constructed.
I guess I'm curious because, you pulled for me the records of, there was a resolution proclamation, not sure of the exact statement, that this board was going to support the Whitesburg Library, but that doesn't say exactly. Okay, so we agreed to.
For operations.
Okay, so I'm just curious why the county never was asked for SPLOST, or did they turn SPLOST down? I mean, I'm just, some history on the.
I don't think we thought that the county would, there were a lot of libraries, we were building one library. We didn't know much about.
Okay.
That we should have asked you.
No, I'm just asking too, because when you have multiple children, you try to keep them all equal. So I'm just, in their notes, I was sitting here making some things going, things aren't really as even. You can't always keep everybody even at the same time, but I just was curious. But yeah, I just want to make sure we don't find ourselves in this situation again, that all of a sudden this, if we give this 50,000 or we give 50,000, 300,000, it means next year it's 300,000. At what point it's going to have to change, and we need to know going into budgets. We just can't have a surprise, oops, all of a sudden we need this money. So I think somewhere we need an agreement of our obligation. I don't know if we're going to have an answer of that by Tuesday night, because the 7 of us may have to discuss it. But so we know going forward, and especially for whoever sits in Lehman's seat too, financial preparedness. Because I don't like people to have to beg, and I don't like to have to. So I don't know what I'm. I just want to make sure we all don't find ourselves in this situation again. And then if one of the cities finds themselves, I think at this point we discussed a rural initiative, and I don't know if that 50,000 is a rural initiative, or if this is just 50,000 more to the budget to be used how. Because if we find another city down the road that falls below 4%, is that 50,000 rural initiative then going to be split amongst 2, 3, 4 cities? And I'm sorry I'm rambling with a bunch of questions for anybody out there that can answer it. I know in the past we have gotten a list of how they spend the money on books or on labor, and I just want to make sure that the regional libraries being more, yes.
Yes, he might can explain some of that.
I just think we need to be a little more transparent on both ends, and that if we're going to give you funds, we need to know where they're going on a more regular basis.
And you did a great job with your presentation the other day.
Thank you. Hi, Commissioner.
But the 50,000 is not clear exactly. Is it rural specifically, or is this that y'all are going to divide it how?
So the budget for Carroll County, the county funds we receive are distributed by a service population-based formula, which you may have seen at some point. Yeah. So I believe Whitesburg gets about 2% of that based on their service population.
1.2.
1.2? 1.2. I don't have anything in front of me.
That's okay.
So,
I won't, yeah.
Based on it, and Carrollton gets 50 because they're the biggest population within the county. So that's currently how it's distributed, and so the $50,000 as a question is basically asking for $50,000 more in operational, and that would be going forward. So $300,000 total, where previously we've been given $250,000. We need $300,000 from this point forward. So next year we would be back also asking for that $300,000. So that 50 is not just a one-time rule.
So I guess that's my
increasing
question.
That budget from 250 to 300.
Correct.
So the 50,000 would mostly be going to Whitesburg and Mount Zion. Are you sticking with the formula, and everyone,
currently,
all 6 libraries are going to get a little bit of that 50,000? I guess is my question.
Currently, the board has not seen the new budget for FY19. So, but in our preliminary work, it's still divided the same way.
Okay. So the 50,000 will be divided amongst all 6 libraries.
Correct.
And that would help Whitesburg and Mount Zion be able to pay their expenses.
Correct.
Okay.
And did Jessica speak with you about what her and I talked about?
Could you remind me?
About the 28,000.
The carryover deficit?
Yes.
And you had spoken to her
a couple weeks ago about if we fund that 50,000, we would ask to make that 28 go away and fund it.
I remember there being some conversation about this. They will take a little bit of reworking, so we may not be able to necessarily divvy it out that same population-based scenario. But we kind of waited until we hear what your decision is before we move forward. Because ultimately we'll have to rework the budget and present it to the board for the board to approve. So ultimately it's our board approval.
Yeah, but I don't want to approve the $50,000 and then y'all come back and say, hey, Whitesburg, we still don't have enough money to fund Whitesburg. I mean, when that $50,000, I'm going to expect Whitesburg to be okay and this year and years to come.
That would be a question that Jessica would have to answer because I can't speak at that financial level for this.
No, I think at this point it's just us coming up with an agreement with the regional library system of how our funds are to be spent starting now and going forward. Because at some point, our populations are going to shift some. So I think not necessarily by Tuesday night, Stacy, but maybe if there's 6 months, maybe we could have some kind of agreement how the funds are going to be spent so we're better prepared in the future.
And we do have agreements with some of our other counties, so this isn't out of ordinary for us.
I think that was
and I'll just apologize. Jessica would have been here, but we had a Board of Trustees meeting. Have to be scheduled for today, so she's there.
And I can't read you. If you state your name.
Oh, Jeremy Snell,
yes.
Deputy Director of West Georgia Regional Library System.
Okay, that was my only questions. Well, my rambling questions, but thank you.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Floor is still open.
Can I just say really quick?
Would you come up here to where we could all hear it? Thank you. You knew I was going to get you up front.
I did have another question, too.
Marjorie Boris, 450 Black Dirt Road, Whitesburg, Georgia, which I'd like to point out is outside of the city limits of Whitesburg, and that's the point I want to keep making. You mentioned some sort of rural library initiative. That's the kind of concept that all of you should get together and figure out, because that's what the problem is. Whitesburg and Mount Zion are too small to to be looked at on a per capita basis. I mean, there are more people outside of Whitesburg who use the library than live inside of Whitesburg. And that's the really critical thing. And we're the county's responsibility. We need money from the county to support our library services outside the city limits. So that's what I wanted to say.
Yes.
We have a petition with names on it. This isn't all of them.
Don't leave that out.
It's lots of names of people living in Whitesburg, around Whitesburg, and in Carroll County. And we have others that that didn't make it this morning, but I'll leave that with you too. Thank you. So,
Mr. Chairman, I did have one more question too.
Yes, one more question.
I think Mr. Borders, the second speaker, I want to, and I guess this is mainly to the regional library system too, to have this discussion going forward. He mentioned something about installing solar panels, very similar to the Upson County Library. Going forward, could we put that initiative on y'all to explore that? Because I believe District 5 Chairman has some funds for his district. So if that could be a financial way we could help going forward too, to lower some of the expenses, if we could invest maybe some possible SPLOST funds.
That was Bill that mentioned Upson County. She's just asking, can that be something you can research more?
I think that they do have that already down there.
Okay, and that's something you could bring back and
to explore. He said it was already like the ductwork was already put in, so the possibility of
the features.
we come to.
I'm sorry.
That way we record it and
I knew
everybody can hear
I had
you.
another question here. I'm trying to think how to save money in the future too.
Do I have to identify?
No.
The features that I mentioned were passive solar.
Okay.
They're not solar panels.
Okay.
And they're just as economical and effective as solar panels in that they reduce heating and cooling bills rather than generate electricity.
So at this point, though, it's somewhat installed, but it needs more funds to add to that to help with it? No.
That's built into the structure that nothing more needs to be done unless we want to generate electricity. But everything else in terms of how the building is oriented toward north and south, the kind of slab that it's built on that stores heat across the seasons in different ways, the way the windows are operating, the kind of insulation that we put into the roof, all of that was in the construction. And we benefit in the sense that our library in Whitesburg it pays a utility bill that is comparable to a house of a family of 4. Now that is spectacular for a public building, you have to agree. But nothing more needs to be done, it's there, unless you want us to generate electricity.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Does that answer your question?
It did. I just was thinking if there was another level we needed to take it to help lower the bills, but I misunderstood you, so thank you.
Well, an interesting feature of that is when the negotiations were going on between Whitesburg and the library system, Whitesburg grabbed on to the paying of the bills because they knew that was going to be very economical. And the library system has since then wanted to take that feature on as part of the agreement that they would cover that if we pay for others. So it's an attractive thing to have.
Thank you.
Okay. Is it too late to make a public comment? No, ma'am. Floor is open.
I'm Lynn Kress, 310 Kramer Street, Carrollton. I'm here with the Carrollton Friends of the Library as their treasurer and longtime board member, listening to all these wonderful people from Whitesburg. I'm feeling like the Carrollton Friends of the Library need to give them some money, and that's not our purpose. We've got money in the bank, we've got our own needs. So if you guys can't help, it's sad. I hope you can. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? Public floor is open. Ask a second time, anyone else? Seeing none, call on Financial Director. Anything else? Lehman. Thank you. Staff, County Attorney. Seeing none, public meeting is now closed.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank
'cause
you
we've
to
never
everyone
had-
that has come out. Yeah, we've never
Never
had
had
anyone
this.
come out. Yes.
What was when they built that? What did we agree to do to help them?
Verbally, we just said we would assist them.